For the past 13 summers, the nation's best comics and rising stars have gathered on Nantucket. The Nantucket Comedy Festival is a highlight of the island's summer scene as it benefits the Standup and Learn Foundation for local youngsters and provides a series of hilarious evenings. And now, in these challenging times, in the spirit of the festival, we gather a group of comics to provide some laughs, some diversion, and a dose this evening of the best medicine.
The finely crafted plans of live television, Zooming, and online through the pandemic. Good evening once again. It's Thursday night time again for the best medicine in the spirit of the Nantucket Comedy Festival. I am Bob Lee, and let's say hello to these people that we have reached out weeks in advance to get to this moment in cyberspace. A 20-year force on the New England comedy scene who's performed at over 350 colleges across the country and exactly one Hooters. PJ Thibodeau. Hello, PJ.
Oh, you, Bob. What's going on, guys?
Wearing his Liverpool shirt. I like it.
He'll never look at that. Oh, yeah. Well, you get back to it soon to defend the title or to win it.
Let's hope so.
The funniest man from Barbados, a veteran of the Boston comedy scene and a close personal friend of the Connecticut State Police, Carl Yard.
Don't say that about a black man. My God. He's referring to a car accident.
A couple of weeks ago, which we talked about. And Carl.
That we talked about, exactly. You got to give people the backstory, Bob. Jesus.
Too soon. Well, we got 30, 40 minutes to do that, obviously.
Exactly.
One of the top touring comics, based out of New York City. It's always good to welcome him to the best medicine. Wally Collins. Good evening, Wally.
What is going on? What's going on? I've been planning this for weeks.
I know. I can see the tension in your.
Hope I do good.
Yeah,
or even well.
Pass the audition.
And the executive director of the Nantucket Comedy Festival, and a man who each year rereads Moby Dick just so he can hear that lookout shout, "Thar she blows." Kevin Flynn.
It's like Beavis and Butthead, exactly. Bob, I got to say, good job on the intro. We were supposed to have Mike McDonald. He's one of the older comedians.
He may get here.
He can't figure out the Zoom technology like Don Gavin. We had Marion Groden. They both can't get on for some reason. Meanwhile, everything that's going on in the nation, I call my two friends. I have more than two black friends, by the way. I told both that they're well aware of that. Yeah. But with what's going on in the country and in the world, we thought this would be interesting as well.
I mean, what can we is there anything worth laughing at?
Yet the two most non-threatening black men on the planet.
Oh, no. You're both intellects. You're both intellects. There's nothing.
That's threatening.
That's a good thing, man. That's a good thing. So,
and I want to say, Kevin, you look so smart with those books behind you. I just want to say.
Yeah, exactly. They're my daughters, my girlfriends. I think, Bob, I think it's interesting, though, because with Wally and with Carl, I've had, discussions about, racial things. And so I thought it was, a good time to bring it up because it's an interesting time in our country. And I must say, to me personally, what I've been encouraged about, believe it or not, for some reason I have felt hope and encouragement, is that the faces that are out there protesting this man being murdered, basically, are every race, read, color. It just is not right. Justice is supposed to be blind, and sometimes people don't see it. And my thing is, here we are on technology, video technology. Do you have to actually see it to believe it? And even when you see it, even when you see it, people still won't believe it. It's unbelievable.
No, but
if you never saw Rodney King, you wouldn't have believed it, right? But you did.
Right. But I think, you know what, if you don't have that video, if you don't have that visual proof, you're starting up further back. But when you have some kind of video proof, that helps your argument. Sadly, it helps your argument. You're not taking on your word of mouth or, the promise of saying I'm being honest about this. But it's, we live in a world now where everyone has a video camera, and just hold it up. And you know what? You got to watch yourself. And people are saying, I can't believe this is happening now. It's been happening for over 100 years, man. And now you're seeing what we've been seeing and what we've been dealing with for all that time.
Right.
We've talked in the past on this show about the art of comedy and testing out routines in the PC environment.
Right.
And how we talk about the prevalence of comedy or of digital, cell phone cameras
and how that has changed comedy. And you may want to go out and push the envelope that night.
Right.
You go one step too far, and it could be in front of 20 people in a bar, but boom, that's just a minute portion of the reality you're talking about, the proof of video. I mean, Carl, just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about a number of stuff and laughing about a number of stuff that I think if we would put it on the agenda tonight, we'd say, you know what, this may not be the time to go there.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think it's I don't want to hog the time, but I think it is an interesting time and very, very important time when we do kind of like step back and kind of look at ourselves as a country, as a nation, to say, what are we doing? What are we saying? What are we putting out to the rest of the world? What are we representing ourselves as?
Yeah. I think there's a good part of having the pandemic and this happen at the same time. It's that people can't walk away from it and ignore it anymore. It's the only thing that's there. And I coach basketball, youth basketball, AU, high school. And I have a lot of kids from 6th grade on that see this on their social media feeds. They just see a murder. And where in the 60s and 70s, parents would be feeling too uncomfortable to talk about this stuff, there's no way to get around that or get past that anymore. The kids see it. And if I post something on, my social media, which I try to stay away from, I try to separate the two things. All of my kids like to post or, start the discussion. Kids. So these kids are going to grow up knowing that all of this is wrong. And they're stuck in this. They don't have anything else to occupy their time or their, their interests. And they're seeing how messed up this country can be.
What's surprising me, what's really surprising me is that a lot of white people don't know, or I don't know if choose to ignore, but the way police and white people in general, the way a lot of white people in general, how their attitude changes toward black people. When I talk to my white friends and they're like, they can't believe that, that white people or white police would treat me differently from they treat them. I don't know if they don't see it. I mean, I've been in a room where I'm the only black person and I can tell there's 2 or 3 white people in there looking at me. I can tell the way they're looking at me. Either they don't want me there, but the other white people are not noticing it, right? But I'm noticing it. I don't know if they choose to ignore it. So I don't understand how white people can't, you don't see what's going on. Or maybe you're not looking for it. Maybe because I'm black, I'm looking for it. So, maybe that's why I see it. Right. And I'll give you a couple of examples real quick. Was doing a show in, I think it was Presque Isle, Maine. I don't know if Kevin ever did that show for Rob Steen. And
I only do A rooms.
Okay, so you probably didn't do that room.
Still waiting for your check.
So anyway, it's like right borderline Canada. So at the end of the show, they say, "Hey, Carl, at the end of the night, at the end of the show, and we're so close to Canada, we go over to Canada and we party. We go to a bar, a club, whatever, and hang out." And cross the border. And they said, we just drive right through. They know us. I go, well, tonight, you guys are going to have to get out of the car. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, okay. So they get to the border, right? So the border patrol, they pretty much know them right now. And as they're driving through slowly, the guy spots me in the back and stops the car. And they're like, they're shocked. Like, what does he want? And I'm like, the guy saw me. I didn't say that, but he saw me. They all had to get out the car. He searched the car, went to this hole, get out the car, look in the trunk, all that stuff. Just because, but I knew it. I knew that this was going to happen, So I don't understand why white people don't understand that this happens. I mean, every black person has many, many, many stories like this. And I'll give you another quick story. I was once working for a company, and there were 2 jobs put on the posted, and it would pretty much double your pay. So me and another white coworker, we decided we got to go for it. It was paying like $120,000 a year or something like that, and we were making like 40 or something at the time. So he said, "I'll go," and it was like 3 or 4 jobs, so it was like enough where I can get one, he can get one, whatever. So he went in and talked to HR. So HR said, "Okay, if you need this job, here's the classes you have to take. here's, if you need to take these classes, if you get good grades, the company's going to pay for your classes. And she just gave him the whole rundown. What you need to do to get this particular job. So he said, okay. So he said, great. He came out, he told me. So I said, okay, I'm going to go in the next day and she can explain to me what I need to do. So I went in and talked to HR. I said, I'm interested in the job you guys posted, and I'm waiting for her to say to me, well, here's what you need to do. You need to go take this class, go to this college, come in on the whole, whatever he told me. She just said to me, sorry, but you're not qualified. I'm like, yeah, but give me the information you gave my friend. And she just said, with a smile, oh, you're not qualified. I'm sorry. So that's the kind of thing that we deal with every freaking day, every day. I mean, but no one sees that. If I had never told you guys that, and sometimes it just seems like you're bitching if you keep coming up with I mean, I can tell you guys a million stories.
Okay, guys, I've been with you and I, Wally, and Carl and I. We've worked at shows where you are the only people of color in the room. Going.
I like to call it only chip in the cookie.
Yes, right.
So come to Nantucket.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, I know.
The guys have been there for sure. But it's sort of like, hey, Mike McDonald has joined us. Mike, can you hear me? Look at him.
Hey, Mike.
Carl, how are you?
That's not a chip on your shoulder, is it?
Audio?
It's a Gavin impression in front of our eyes.
Mike, welcome to the show. We have a little different lineup because people couldn't get on, and then with all that's going on in the world, we figured we'd extend it to some other people. So, but going back to what you were saying, Carl, part of it is when we talked about the story 2 weeks ago when you and I pulled over on a Saturday or Sunday morning to look at a Mercedes on somebody's front lawn, and you didn't want to get out of the car because you said, Kev, it's going to be a problem. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wally doesn't know the story. Kevin and I did a show in New Hampshire. We're driving back from New Hampshire. Kevin sees a Mercedes parked on the lawn, decides he wants to take a look at it. I'm sitting in the car. He gets out to go look at the Mercedes. I'm sitting in the car shitting bricks. I'm thinking, okay, so the cop's going to pull up and think I'm the getaway driver. So let me get out and pretend like him and I are together. But now if I get out, I'm thinking, oh, holy shit, now they're going to think I'm encouraging Kev to steal this car. So what? I'm like, I didn't say anything to Kev at the time. I guess we talked about it after, right? But
yeah. As we're driving away, I'm like, why didn't you get out of the car? And I'm like, I'm walking up, I'm looking in, sitting in the seat.
My heart is friggin' beating. I mean, we got in that car, and even after we drove away, I kept looking in the rearview mirror because I'm thinking, I know somebody saw me or saw something, but you know what I mean? It just wasn't a easy feeling. You know what I mean?
Mike McDonald, you're a racist. What are your thoughts?
That was my Mercedes, and thank God. Hey, PJ, how you doing, brother?
What's up, Mikey? How are you, man?
Hey, I'll tell you guys this because I had a Facebook exchange with one of my friends, and I don't want to say his name, but I played for the next town over to me. They were the state champions, Guilford, Connecticut, and they had two black guys who played on the team. They were brothers, fantastic players. I hated them when I was in Madison. I went and played in Guilford, got to know them as people. And if I tell you that pretty much they were the only black guys on a field, soccer field, week after week after week, every single week, without exception, a racist taunt was thrown in their direction. And it was such an experience for me to be like, oh my God, I never knew that world was out there. Growing up in Lily White, Madison, Connecticut, where here are two of my buddies who I'm going to battle with, and out of nowhere, for no reason. So I used to form this theory because I have a mouth. I was quick with my fists. I said, if I behaved like that as a black man, showstopper. Shit would have happened all over the time. But it was like just me. Kevin's got an Irish temper. Just push it off to the side. But these two guys, and the other point I wanted to make about these two gentlemen was he went on to be the captain of the tough soccer team, graduated first in his class, went to Harvard, went to law school, knew Obama in law school. It seems like a lot of times as a black man, you have to be absolutely perfect, a perfect citizen, and still you get shit. and still you get shit.
What's the classic phrase? I forget who originated it, but I think it was an African-American writer, the magic Negro.
What?
That's the phrase in literature.
What? Say the phrase again.
The magic Negro.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
like James Baldwin, maybe.
I forget. Yeah. I mean, did anybody hear the conversation between Charlemagne the God and Rush Limbaugh this week? No, you know what? They both. Well, all right. It sounds like a joke, but it actually happened, and I listened to it last night. And they both syndicate under the same umbrella in radio, and so I guess it was a simulcast on both shows at the same time. Right. And and Charlemagne basically had to, and I listened to the end from Charlemagne's end of it, from his hosting of it, and basically had to prepare his audience at the Breakfast Club for having him on, but explaining we want to have different views. And it was about 28 minutes, and it was civil. It was at times pleasant, but I mean, it just. Limbaugh, who I do know, and he worked at ESPN about 15, 16 years ago, and I've stayed in touch with him. He's an interesting fellow. We're not friends, but professing to not have an understanding of the concept of white supremacy or white privilege at all. He
didn't know what that was?
He rejects the thought that there is such a thing as white privilege, and his rejoinder to that, turning around to the cast of the Breakfast Club, saying, "Look, you're here. You've succeeded. You've got and who's joining us now? Is that Marion Groden joining us?
Yes, I apologize.
Not a problem.
I apologize. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
I'm so excited to be here. I had so much crap open, and my lovely roommate came in, and he knows how to do all this stuff. He got rid of everything I didn't need, and now it's okay. It just needed to free up space.
I dare say this is the first time your name has been mentioned in the same sentence with Rush Limbaugh and Charlemagne the God.
Well, you're wrong about Charlemagne the God. Hey, Wally.
What's going on there, man?
Hi, Beauty. How are you?
Hey, by the way, Mike McDonald, this is a comedy show. We have the best. Welcome. Looks like a hostage video.
Hi, Kevin.
I suggest you get closer to the camera.
Hi, guys.
Marion, he was talking to you. Yeah, you're fine. Sit back a little bit. We actually saw all your nasal hair there for a second.
How does the parrot feel about all of this?
Exactly.
Well, he has to be here because if I put him in the other room, he's like a 2-year-old and he'll be screaming. So he just wants to hang out, see what's going on, be part of the show. And,
does he talk?
When he wants to.
Does he have anything to say?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but Winston Churchill had a parrot. He had a blue and gold macaw that in Winston Churchill's voice would say, "Fuck Hitler."
Hitler. Is that a true story?
It is. You can Google the blue and gold macaw that Winston Churchill had, which it was alive up until a couple of years ago. May still be alive because Nicky right here is over 40. He's my longest living relationship.
That's amazing.
Are you sleeping with him too?
Remember, it's tough during the pandemic.
It is. You
remember? Do what you got to do.
You guys
I've been
remember
looking at sexy little buddy, and right now it's him.
Robert Schimmel used to have a bit about a parrot, and he said some guy got arrested.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Having sex with a cat, and he says, "Oh my God, that's terrible. Having sex with a cat." He goes, "You got to be careful." He goes, I guess you got to be careful about what type of animal you have sex with." He goes, "Because you can't have sex with a parrot because it would rat you out."
That's right.
Hey, Polly, want a cracker? He fucks me. He fucks me with no one here.
I saw this true crime show once, and the parrot, the woman had murdered her mate, and the parrot remembered what the woman said. And she said something like, "I'm going to fuck you up." And the parrot just kept saying, "I'm going to fuck you up." He was the witness. They couldn't put him on the stand, but he basically broke the case.
Well, we're talking about justice this evening, so interesting.
Yeah.
Mike, what's the parrot's name?
Nicky.
How
you doing?
Can I ask a fellow animal of color? Is it any different for him?
If he's an animal of color?
Yes. Is life different for him?
Not easy being green.
He actually, he has not shied away from people of color, but what he does like is blonde women.
Oh.
And yeah, he's a dog, basically.
Is he in the NFL?
Well, I would have friends of mine over for football games, and there'd be blonde women, and he would walk down the couch and get on top of them.
Wow.
And yeah.
The good old days.
The shoulder, you mean?
Not shy at all.
Now he'd have to wear a mask.
On their shoulder.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of like an animal version of a body cam, though, because he'll record everything and just play it back.
Oh God, we don't want to see that video. We do not want to see that video. What Mike McDonald does in a day. Look at
He's
your hair.
willing. He's willing to show his feather off at any point.
You just got to get to the punchline. The punchline is the parrot's a liar.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Mike, are you on your phone?
No, I'm not. I'm on my computer. I'm on my Mac. Why? Is this coming through badly?
He's on Al Ducharme's phone.
You got a little bit of an Al Ducharme delay. That's what we call it, a delay. So
I'm sorry. We have a steam-driven ISP where I live, so more power in the engine room.
Considering where we are, and we talked about, the important stuff for the first 15, 20 minutes or so, and you folks are all in the business of finding funny things to talk about. And, you'd mentioned, PJ, I think you'd mentioned with the pandemic, it's focused our attention on the horrors of the last week as a nation and as a culture. But there's going to be a time when you'll be out performing again, and not just the odd Zoom gig, and you'll be trying to write topical stuff. And considering the catharsis that this country's been through in the last week and is still going through hour by hour, what are we going to be able to laugh at? And what are we going to take from this? How will this inform what we laugh at going into the future, do you think?
Well, that's the great part about being a comedian, because you have to make people laugh at things they don't even want to talk about. Right? You have to find that line and make things accessible. And a lot of times, comedians are the ones that lead the conversation, for better or worse. There are a lot of brilliant comedians, especially on, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock have talked about this stuff for a long time. The problem is some of the lessons behind it get lost in the laughs, So.
I remember after 9/11, I was at Gotham and Robin Williams came in, and he was really the first person who had been able to be funny and talk about that. And it was so spectacular because, of course, his perspective was so sensitive and brilliant that he could talk about it. But of course, that's the key, right? It's all about what's your take on stuff that makes you able to talk about things that are seemingly unspeakable.
Funny is funny, everyone. And I think, comics are canaries in the coal mines. They talk about things that other people, we see things in a different way. But
right.
Part of what our first 20-minute conversation was about is about white privilege. And doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Doesn't mean it's easy for you. But you need to acknowledge the fact that things are different. Things were different for me. Things were different for Carl when we pulled over to look at a Mercedes. And that's just a tiny little thing. And so I don't think people are saying, I think people are just saying, acknowledge that in some way. Just be aware of that. That's all. And some people refuse to even acknowledge it. It's, and I think, I'm not a historian. And Bob, we talked last week about that 3-part miniseries on History Channel called Grant about the Civil War. And after the Civil War was about slavery. It was not about states' rights. It was not about this proud man, Robert E. Lee. He was a traitor. He was a traitor to this country. He tried to break up the Union. They tried Reconstruction. Grant became the president. They went down for Reconstruction. And when Reconstruction started to take hold, the Klan took over. The Klan, there were black congressmen and black senators. The black people voted a higher rate than white people after they were freed and after the Civil War. And yet these black congressmen, these black senators went in, and you know what? They didn't like it down in the South. It didn't take. So the Klan came in, and Grant had to send the troops back in. And after a while, people got tired of sending the troops back in. And that's basically a stain that is still on our country, and it's still there. I'm not saying we can't fix it, but it's like, acknowledge it, for God's sakes. Acknowledge it, and we move on.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Just acknowledge that it's happening. And one of the reasons I love talking to you is when we start talking about race, you don't duck and hide and try to, you know what I mean? Like, and I have a lot of white friends that once I start talking about race, I can tell they get really uncomfortable. And I don't come at them in an angry way, but all I'm saying is just listen to what I'm saying. Believe, you know what I mean? Like, women just listen to my story and believe that it's happening. You know what I mean? Kind of commiserate with me for a little bit, you know, but don't try to get me to shut up. You know, a lot of my white friends tell me the more I talk about it, the more I keep it alive. You know, I'm like, seriously?
No, it's alive. You're not keeping it alive.
Right. You know what I mean?
I really think that if it doesn't affect you, it doesn't exist. And, you know, for a lot of people of privilege, you know, they can go through the ranks and not even meet anyone of color, you know, and, you know, and they're fine with that. You know, I know a lot of people, you know, their parents, grandparents who are, you know, did very well in this country and very, very rarely dealt with, you know, someone of color or even saw someone of color their boss. So even how they relate to someone of color it's almost like a condescending way, but they don't mean to be that way. They don't know any better to talk, you know, as an equal, because why should they? Because they really don't have anything to fear. And if you're living in a neighborhood where there's no one of color, why should this be a conversation? Why should you waste your time with it? So I understand, you know, where they're coming from. And, you know, they don't want that in their neighborhood. They don't want protests. They don't want any kind of, if you do have anyone of color in the neighborhood, now you're bringing problems. So yeah, I understand where they're coming from. I necessarily don't feel it, but I understand where they're coming from.
My friend Jalen Rose the other day on ESPN said something that was rather profound. You know, everyone had their chance to say their pieces as all of this exploded. What Jalen said, I didn't see this, I read it, and it just smacks. I mean, here's a guy who's so involved in Detroit, played 18 years in the National Basketball Association, founded a charter school in Detroit, and has put his money in there. And a charter school, by the way, to which people line up for blocks for a chance to get into the lottery to get their kids into this. And Jalen said a very simple and profound thing. I wish Americans would embrace Black people the way they embrace Black culture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a great insight.
There's a saying that we say is that y'all want our rhythms, but never the blues.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Good. I like that. Dude, that should be on a bumper sticker, dude. Tell that after your comedy shows.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, every piece of Black culture, you take a piece of it, but you know what? The other sides of it, we'll just, you know, it's like a smorgasbord, a buffet. Like, okay, we like your music, we like the way you dress. You know,
Wally, I want to say, Wally and Carl, I have had racial discussions with you guys,
right?
Because I think that you trust that I'm not a racist, and so I know I'm going to say something perhaps ill-informed or perhaps ignorant, right? And you won't bite my head off. You just sort of give me your perspective, and it's sort of a soft learning that I've had. We talked about it last week, the long drives back from gigs where you just get to know somebody, and you know, well, you know, your mom and your dad, and what, you know, wonderful stories of these people. It's just the American story, the American dream. And what I would encourage is to just sort of say, like, have these conversations, you know, talk about it. Don't feel you're going to say something stupid. You're going to say something ignorant. Sure. But you guys never.
Among friends, you can do that, Kevin. Among friends, you can do that. But if you're out there working in the public eye, you don't get a second chance, especially in that. And so that self-censorship or that walking on eggshells or around landmines takes hold. I've done a lot of work in this field over the years, going back 20, 25 years. So you think you've got a body of work, but even at that, you have to be, you know, if you dealt with this topic on a news show or a sports news show, I guarantee you, just don't answer your phone after the show. Don't check your email, no matter how good it was, no matter how much people tell you, you know, of all stretches of great. You have pissed off a whole bunch of people on both sides of the equation because they each see it through their own lens.
Right. You're right. And
back to Wally's point, I mean, so much of it is just what your experience is. You know, for me, I grew up in the 60s on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. At one point, my mother's boyfriend was a Black Panther named Quando Kinshasa. So for me, you know him. But for me...
That was my stage name for many years.
Yeah, but for me, you know, that was normal, right? That was normal that all my friends were mostly not white, were Black and Spanish. And I knew that the way I was growing up was really great because all the other white kids on my street went to private school and their friends were mostly white. And I knew that the way I was growing up was actually a privilege.
Yeah, what for me is what's driving the fear. That's what gets me. Like the fear, when I see the fear that I can instill in white people, it still amazes me. I mean, like simple things like asking for directions, right? You pull up to a crowd of white people and say, hey, can you tell me how to get to George Street? And the first look on their faces, like, they got this look, like, you know what I mean? And you can see the fear, like, Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, can you just give me directions without being scared? You know what I mean? The pizza guy comes to my house, I open the door and it's like, yeah, I live here. You know what I mean? Like, what's driving that? What the fuck drives that? Where does this fear come from? I did nothing to you. I just asked for directions. I just opened my door. You know what I mean? And you got this look on your face.
You're supposed to have pants on, though, Carl.
Not during the pandemic. Not during the pandemic.
I love that. I love when people come in and I love that.
I think Mike McDonald has been very quiet during this whole.
I know.
What are you holding back on, McDonald?
Ready to go.
This is a white people issue that we don't talk about Black things unless we're with Black people.
He's right.
We don't discuss that. And if we do discuss it, every white person who has been at a party that's just white, that doesn't have anybody of color in it, has been approached with somebody who's going to tell a Jew joke, a spick joke, a joke about somebody being Black, and it's never, all it is racial stereotype, and it's hammering that racial stereotype again. It never ends in a good way. Every comedian here has done their show, and then at the end of the show, been approached by some Yahoo in the audience who comes up and goes, hey, that was a great act that you did. So these two Jews, right? They launch right into this shit. Like, there's nothing in my act that would show you that I'm that kind of person. But what makes you think that I want to hear your joke about beating a woman?
Right. Welcome to a cruise ship. My God.
Yeah. You know, my roommate. I'm not racist, but yeah.
Right.
My roommate in Boston when I lived there was Black, and he would come to me with the show to be the only Black guy in the room, you know, unless Wally was there. And then we would be leaving, and someone would tell us, him and I, a Black joke. You know, we'd be like, you know, no, it's funny. It's funny.
Right.
I think sometimes people are nervous and they're ignorant, and it's a combination. And, you know, the other thing I want to make a point about this poor man who was killed, he was a big guy. He was big. And what happens is you see a big Black man, these guys just go AWOL. They go batshit crazy. And 4 men with guns taking him down and with no compassion, you know. Right. It's sort of a response that just quickly happens. You know, he's in trouble.
I had a similar experience to what that guy had back in, I think it was 90, 91, 92. And so my wife and I ordered Chinese food. So we go to pick it up. And when I get there, it's like a 4-lane road. So cars are parked on the left side and the other 3 lanes are free. So I just double park because there's 2 other lanes that can go. My wife jumped out, went into the Chinese store to grab the food. So my son was about 3 or 4 years old at the time. So we were playing with the radio. We were playing different kinds of music, and we were listening and, having fun in the car. So I heard this car behind me beeping, like beep, 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 beep. So I didn't even look up. I just went like, just go around. There's 2 lanes. So the car just kept going beep. So I went, go around. So eventually I heard, woo. It's like, oh, fuck. So
oh my God.
I pulled up to my car. He goes, why didn't you move? I go, well, I didn't think that you were, a police officer. I just, you know what I mean? So I wasn't sure. And he goes, get out the car. So I was like, okay. I guess I wasn't getting out fast enough because within like 2 seconds, he was trying to get me out the window with my seatbelt on. So he's trying to get me out the window. My son started crying. I don't even know how he did this, but within like 2 seconds, there were like 4 other police cars. So now I had like three police. They pulled me out through the window, put me on the ground, and they literally had one guy was holding my neck and 2 guys on my legs.
For double parking.
So my wife comes out. She's like screaming, "What the hell's going on? I'm in there for not even 2 minutes, and what's going on?" And so my wife screamed. My son's, hysterical. They kind of hog-tied me because they cuffed me, my hands behind my back, picked me up like I was a package, and just threw me in the back of the police car.
Where was this, Carl?
This was in Roslindale.
I have kind of a similar story.
Yeah, so I'm in the cop car, and
Carl, get to the part where you were sodomized.
So I told this police,
with you, Carl.
I cussed this police. The police that took me to the jail, he wasn't a cop that arrested me. It was another cop. And I said, I hate you fucking cops. I fucking hate all you. I wish you fucking die, you fucking son of a bitch. Fuck you, fuck your mother, your father. And I just went off. And the cop turned around. He said, I don't think you did anything. And I'm really sorry.
That's all you need. A little compassion.
Yeah.
What'd your fortune cookie say?
So the cop got me. He got me charged with failure to get out of the way of a police vehicle of an emergency.
It would have been great if they gave you that ticket and a fortune cookie.
Yeah, that'd been great. Yeah.
And failure to change my address because at the time we had just moved to a new place and I didn't change the address on my driver's license to match my new address. So he got me on that. And he got me on failure to move out of the way of an emergency vehicle.
You were questioning authority, Carl. You were questioning authority in some way. And by the way, PJ, I wonder if you did a handstand and we saw your head in the opposite direction, if you'd look exactly the same.
That police was Sergeant T. Joyce, and I still have the ticket to this day. That was over almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
See, Carl, when I listen to a story like that, I personally, as a white guy, I feel embarrassed that this kind of stuff happens all the time. And I am sick, personally, of putting up with this kind of crap, where when I do go to a party and hear somebody tell a joke that doesn't fit, I've been done with this for 20 years. I get in these people's faces and bust their chops. Because it's inappropriate. It shows. I've never understood how you can bet your fortune on NBA basketball and in the next minute tell a joke with the N-word on.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I want to play fantasy football, but what? Okay, you can only play the white players this week then. Maybe that would be the way of ending racism.
Wally, you said you had a story.
Well, I have a story. When I got pulled over in Connecticut, I was just doing a country club, and my GPS had me going all over the place. So I know I was definitely going around like in circles. And cop pulled me over, and he was like, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And I'm like, I just came from such and such country club. And he goes, what are you doing there? Like that.
What are you doing?
I bought the place.
No blacks or Jews in that club. Why are you there?
Yeah, exactly. So I said, I'm a comedian. I just did a show there. And it was a state trooper, with the thing. And he's looking in my, and he says, you're a comedian? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, tell me a joke.
Oh, no. God.
All right, this racist cop pulls me over.
And I said, you're good looking.
Oh.
Know your audience, dude. Know your audience.
It should have been a movie because that pause, it felt like 2.5 weeks of like a pause,
Started with guys walking to a bar.
That was 11 emotions rocketing around in his super hat.
So he, you know what? I think he said, this black dude has enough nerve to say that. He's definitely a comic. So he kind of like gave a half smile and he says, "Where are you trying to get to?" So I'm trying to get to the highway. He goes, "Yeah, you gave me directions." And man, it was one of those, why did I do that? But it's a good story.
I had one interesting thing in Brookline. When I was living in Brookline, one of my good friends was a cop, and they'd pull me over every Thursday night as I'd come home from Stitches just to fool with me, And
right.
But one night, Stitches Comedy Club.
Yes.
I know. We'll have you in Stitches real soon.
So, this is in Boston, and so anyway, I go to this bar right at Coolidge Corner Clubhouse. And Jeff T meets me. Jeff T and I are having a beer. Jeff's of color, he's a black guy, friends of ours. And he's sitting there talking, and all of a sudden my friend walks in, and he's a Brookline police officer, and he's meeting me for a beer. And the two of them look at each other, and it's like a death stare. They like look at each other. My friend Mike had pulled over Jeff the week before.
What?
And I should have made a short about it because they sit down and they both don't want to sit. They're going to both move, And I'm like, guys, what? He goes, this fucking cop pulled me over, And he's like, yeah, well, like they're like stammering back and forth. And finally they sat down. It reminded me of Obama's beer summit there, where they sit down and have a beer. They both described what they were going through. Jeff said, I was coming home from the Comedy Connection, and he said, I was just driving, and you pulled me over, and you whipped me out of the car, and you threw me up against the hood. And he's like, and my friend who's a cop, who's a good guy, but he goes, you were driving like a gold, like Buick. And Jeff goes, yeah. He goes, well, there was a shooting in Brookline Village, and we were looking for the thing, and he goes through the whole thing, and Jeff goes, yeah, but I was at the Comedy Connection. I had nothing to do with it. He goes, yeah, but I didn't know that. And I got 3 little girls at home, and I wanted to go home. And he goes, well, you could have been a little nicer about it. He goes, I should have. And in fact, after you drove off, I was like, I was too harsh on that. But he goes, I was scared. And my only thing that I took with that was like, for some reason, both of them, Jeff didn't do anything wrong, and my friend who's a cop acted inappropriately. And I had hoped that he took a lesson from that to say, like, everybody has a mom and a dad that they're going home to, and kids, and so do you, and you want to go home to your kids, so does Jeff, So I always thought it was interesting.
There's a certain amount of fear. There's a certain amount of fear of black men. That fear is. There's a certain amount of fear among white people of black men, not all, but a larger portion of white. There's a certain amount of fear that we invoke just by existing.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. Like, what is the fear? What is it that me walking down the street makes you want to cross the street? You know what I mean?
Well, because they're ugly.
Further stories that the FBI statistics show that black men are responsible for 90% of the crime, even though they're 30% of the population. And, some people say those statistics don't bear out. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. FBI statistics, you want to believe the FBI statistics, but,
Yeah, but I think you're hitting the one of the nails on the head with both of your friends. Like, your friend needed to explain, your black friend needed to explain his side to let that cop know how he was feeling. And then that cop needed to hear it and change his ways the next time he pulls somebody over. Right. And the problem is those conversations don't happen enough. People aren't talking about this directly. And that's a I'm sure that your friend was a police officer, thought about that the whole car ride home and the rest of that week. And your friend, that's the black guy, just felt good that he finally got to get that off his chest. And let's be honest, right? We've seen hundreds of times lately, that could have been much, much worse. For something that insignificant, for Carl being double parked, right? People are getting murdered for no reason. And the good cops, right? They get lost in the conversation here. The fact that it's the authority that police have is the issue, not the badge, right? There's all these things being lost because there's no conversation. There's nobody willing to have the conversation. There's nobody willing to be uncomfortable and then move past that, uncomfortable feeling with some knowledge. And that's a great part about comedy, trying to make an uncomfortable room into a laughing room, right? So we have that experience every time we get into a room on a stage, right? And people don't have these opportunities in life.
I think that part of the conversation with cops has to be that why have we got guys that are white supremacists in the police force? Why are these people allowed to be in the police force? I mean, if you've got tats that tell people that you're a white supremacist and you're on social media hating on people because of their color, how do you get to be a cop? Yeah. I mean, where is the screening process on this where we let these people in the door? I mean, if that guy's a white supremacist, as he pulls me over, he's going to give me a hard time.
Right.
Let alone somebody of color.
It's not just the screening for racial attitudes or social attitudes, screening for the ability to handle stress, to interaction. I mean, these smaller towns, anybody, underscore and repeat, anybody can become a cop. And I've met some, and I know some people who have carried, the badge and the gun, and I think to myself, holy Jesus, he's the guy who's going to pull you over at 10 o'clock at night, white or black, and make a decision about what's going down. I mean, he's got trouble getting his kids to go to bed on time.
Right.
And somebody tweeted something the other day that many of the responsibilities that we put on cops these days could probably be best farmed out to social workers. Well, that's in utopia. That's not going to happen. But you ask that cop to be somebody who's going to step into a volatile situation. I mean, here in the state of Connecticut, because I think it was because a cop was injured maybe 30, 40 years ago. There's a law in effect if they respond to a domestic violence allegation or call, somebody has to be arrested. I mean, you're asking people to step into situations that can turn on a dime and regardless of whether there's a gun or a criminal, act in play, injure them. So the act of screening who goes into that profession, that needs a lot of work,
There's 2 points I want to make is that a lot of these cops were bullied when they were younger. And this is their chance, so to speak, to get back and have that kind of power. And, as soon as people see that badge or that uniform, you can see them kind of like, they pump up, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this is years of being bullied and I'm going to pass it on to you. Also, they did a study and I wish I remember the city. They did this and it was brilliant. They had the cops come into the community and the cops it's their beat. They would go to the community, white, black, Latin and all that. And they would go into the community and they had like a meet and greet. Like, these are the people who are policing your area. And police brutality, shootings all went down a crazy amount because these cops came in and said, oh, wait a minute, Calvin, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And it just de-escalates the whole situation just exponentially, just ridiculous amount. But what happens is that they get these cops and they put their beats on the opposite side, from the opposite side of the city. They don't know. They have these preconceptions, whatever. So they just come in guns blazing. It's always, you're guilty. Then you have to prove your innocence. And it's just, and that's where it gets dangerous. Why not just have a meet and greet? There you go, some cookies and some, and some pie.
The most radical departure from that, though, of what you're suggesting, though, Wally, is how many times in the last 72 hours have we seen even senior officers or regular cops march some of the protesters? We saw that sheriff in Flint do that. Camden, New Jersey, they showed up with an ice cream truck. With an ice cream truck. A lot of places they took off their tactical gear, took off the helmets, put down the baton. And, and just watching on TV, if you're watching what could be a situation unfolding outside for a building in New York City, but that particular battalion, they're just in their blue shirts and, and they're not geared up.
Right.
You don't expect something necessarily to happen.
And I hate using the phrase fake news, but we don't see enough of that on the news. We see more of the other stuff. I guarantee you that happens infinitely more than we're allowed to see.
But if you watch the B-roll, that not to mention, I won't mention the network by name, but when CNN edits their B-roll and they're interviewing, they're not showing those moments of resolution or of accord.
Yeah,
they've got a 6 or 7 screen of smoke here and tear gas there and shots fired here and somebody bleeding there, because that is the video heroin.
Yeah,
I have seen this time for the first time, and I don't know if it just feels different this time. So sounds like the old Sice a little bit. It's different this time, but it feels like, oh God, I was looking at some of the crowds. They were mostly white. It's like, this is wrong. And it was like, that's got to be encouraging, because it used to be when it was a beating, like in Ferguson, it was just pretty much 98% black people saying we're getting our ass kicked and killed here. And this time it's all white people. And you got the dudes with the skateboards, the white skateboarders breaking windows, and black people are stopping them, saying, we got to take that shit. It's going to come out of our hide, man. Right. We're trying to make a difference here. And so,
I protested yesterday, in fact, down on 34th Herald Square. Then I went down to Union Square, and it was amazing. It was just so peaceful, and it was like the solidarity. It was just, man, it was just amazing. And it was just like different sects of people. You had they had the black folks there, then you had the gays, LGBTQ, then you had the trans, and then you had like the bikers, and you had the skateboarders. But it was all conclusive, and everyone got on one knee and raised their fists and said, you know what? Listen, it's like we're tired of it. Come on, we're just tired of it, man. Just tired.
I think Bob came up with a great idea. I think that cops have to change out their cars for ice cream trucks. Every time a cop shows up on the scene, he's got to have some
little chunky monkey going.
He's got to have some ice cream to give out. I think that would diffuse the situation pretty well.
And on that note, the clock on the clubhouse wall tells us we're out of time. But this not too many laughs this time. It's flown by. 52 minutes here. Thank you all, PJ and Mike, and Carl and Wally and Marion and Kevin, as always. A lot to talk about this week, and we'll be laughing again soon enough. Thanks. And we'll see you next week.